Connecting with the Heart interview series. My name is Giovanna and I am your host. Today I have a very special guest. Who is she? She is from Japan, is a very good friend, and her name is Sarika. Sarika holds a Master's of Science from the London School of Economics and has worked for many years for the United Nations on women's empowerment and urban development policy. She has been traveling the world, first with her job at the United Nations and now as independent entrepreneur. She lived in more than 11 countries in 4 continents. She is a mother of 2 and she is married to an Irishman. Keeping the same focus on gender and sustainability, Sarika now shares her love for Psyche and face yoga. Psyche with a special attention to small-scale sustainable breweries and women brewers. She does so through her company Sarika Group. We met in Taiwan through mutual friends. Our love for Psyche brought us closer together. While I came from Poland to live in Taiwan, Sarika left Taiwan to go to live to Poland, where she is currently living. So let's welcome Sarika to this interview.
Okay.
Sarika, konnichiwa, welcome, bienvenida, zapraszam.
Muchas gracias, Giovanna. Genial.
I'm so happy.
Estoy feliz de verte.
I'm very happy. And first, before we start with the interview, I love to do this question. And this is, what does it mean, Japan, for you? How is being born and raised in Japan has influenced you as a person that you are today?
Oh my, it's a difficult question already. Well, I mean, I'm genetically, 100% Japanese, but I actually only spent, let's say, 7 years in my entire life in Japan. So that's such an interesting question. So I'm genetically Japanese, and my, the whole family is Japanese. I always grew up speaking Japanese in our house, but the outside world has always been, changing all the time. So that's kind of a interesting. And actually, I wasn't born in Japan. I was actually born in Bangkok, Thailand.
Wow,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, my parents are Japanese, but they were posted to Thailand when I am made in Japan, but born in Bangkok.
Wow. And for how long did you live in Bangkok when you were small?
0 to 3 years old at that time. But of course, later as an adult, I actually went back to Thailand to work in Thailand with the UN. So it's like a cycle.
A cycle. Wow.
Yeah, it's an interesting question.
Yeah, actually, because
well, what does it mean?
Yeah, I mean, for my point of view, I am interviewing a lot of people from different places, and although people are very international, they keep always something that is related to their roots, and I love to do that question or to make that question about the roots.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, for the topic we are going to talk later, is very Japanese, which is sake, no? So in this interview, I would love to talk about your life before Sarika Group, then about becoming an independent entrepreneur, and of course, life as an expat with a bicultural relationship and having kids in a very intercultural environment. As I said in my introduction, you have lived in so many places around 4 continents, 11 countries. So we are excited about knowing about more about that. So let's start with my first question, and is, how did you start working with the United Nations?
Well, the easy answer is that I took the UN, what was called at the time the competitive recruitment exam in social development. Yeah, but actually, the straightforward answer is that, I wanted to change the world, and I was looking around what, kind of organization I can work for at that time. So I applied to the what was called the UN competitive recruitment exam. I took the exam in social development like decades ago.
Wow.
Yeah, but before that, during graduate school, I actually did an internship with UN headquarters in New York in the DESA,
Wow.
the Department for Economic and Social Affairs. And when I saw the kind of work they were doing, I was really excited. And I thought, okay, how do I join? Not as an intern, but as a, official normal worker. So I've learned that there's an exam every year, once a year. So I took that exam and yeah, that's how I joined. And my first post was to Nairobi, Kenya.
Wow.
Yeah, well, it
Very,
wasn't that quick and easy. It took a long time, of course, but
yes. And actually, my next question is related to that. And what was the most rewarding in working on women's empowerment and sustainable urban policy during the period with the UN? So you have been to different continents. So first Africa, and if I am not wrong, you were also posted to Thailand. So what was the most rewarding of working on saving the world?
oh, difficult question. I can't think of just one, but I mean, I think they've been all kind of rewarding in different ways because I think the nature of the job, because I've been to kind of a country office, I've been to a regional office, and I've been also doing projects as well. So I think each level has its own rewarding point. I mean, some of the kind of so-called policy work is hard to sometimes find something rewarding, but I mean, I've kind of experienced kind of different types of nature of work. And I think personally, I think it depends on the person, but in my case, I really find it rewarding when I'm doing actually project work on the ground. So yeah, but then again, so your question about was what was most rewarding in
For you?
terms of, for example, in the case of women, for example, in Thailand, I got to be involved in the 15 years of follow-up to the Beijing Women's Conference. And, that was a historical conference. So it was kind of really fun that I got to be involved in the follow-up in the Asia Pacific region. But there are so many other kind of project level ones that have been rewarding as well, like going to Mexico with a urban safety project. And yeah, I can't think of one answer.
I think in general it's rewarding when you can see if their projects are done, if they are carried out, if people are out there. And I think when people appreciate as well the job that, for example, you are doing for urban development or for women, which is nowadays very important for society and for the future of women.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think when you can feel that you're making a difference, I think that's when it becomes rewarding. Yeah. But then I realized you don't actually have to be necessarily in a organization to be feeling that rewarding feeling either.
As
But yeah.
well, which I am very excited because later on we are going to talk about women in a very male-dominated industry, and you have been really someone who has been there, has been watching, and knows about it. So I'm very excited to arrive to that special
Oh, I'm
topic.
excited to talk to you, Giovanna.
I'm also very excited and I feel very honored to have you here for this interview because I know that your life is very special and also a kind of motivation to other people to see there is an example, you have a career and then you did a switch and how fulfilling this switch has been for you and also for others. But we're going to talk a little bit about later on about the switch and also, I would love to know because through the UN, you have been to different places and have met different colleagues, actually colleagues that some of them I have met as well. So,
That's right. That's right.
and I would love to ask you what are the most special memories during this period? It could be to country related, project related, or colleagues related. What are the special memories?
I mean, they're all so special. And then, of course, when I never actually imagined that I would resign. So, when I joined through the recruitment exam, I was 100% sure I would work until I'm 65 years old in
Like
the organization.
everybody, yeah.
But anyway, I worked about 10 years, I think, at the end. And anyway, yes, going back to your question, special. I mean, there's so many special things, but I think it would be the people, because at the end of the day, it's about, dealing with people and making, hopefully, people's lives better. So I actually met a whole range of people. I mean, literally from street children up to high ranking people in the ministry. So it's been a really, for me, it's been really eye-opening, because in a normal day-to-day life, you don't have this entire spectrum of people that you could meet every day. So yeah, so it's been a humbling experience. And and what's even to this date, some of the people I'm still in touch with, that, for example, in India, that we did a project together, the counterpart and I am still in touch, and a lot of the colleagues, even though I resigned, we've still been in touch. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, I mean, all of the, sorry, my dog is really noisy. Can you hear my dog?
No problem. Just no problem, no problem.
Okay, my dog.
He's also welcome to.
Yeah. Yes, I would say basically, yeah, the people. I mean, the people and the diversity of people that I got to meet was definitely memorable.
Yeah. Which is the benefit of having an expat life, or being like changing countries and living in different situations and environments. So now, you just said before that you used to work 10 years for the UN, and then there was a transition. So now this comes to this part of the interview where I would love to know about the transition, because nowadays for people might think I am scared, I don't have security, how I'm gonna do it, I have an idea, I don't trust it, or maybe I trust it, but I don't know where to start. So for you, after working 10 years at the UN and then doing career change, what was the most difficult in that transition?
Oh, there was lots of difficult things, of course, and of course, when I was resigning, because I very luckily, I actually got a permanent appointment. So people were telling me, "Oh, are you kidding that you're really going to resign?" But at the end of the day, when you have something, there was an instinct. I think I was just following my instinct. And there was a moment where at the time my kids were small. They were 0 years old and 2 years old. And my husband was working in a different country. I was working in a different country. And, this kind of, it was not easy at the time. And there was a opportunity that came up for my husband to move to Japan, even though he's not Japanese. But and at that time, it was like a light bulb in my mind that, what, maybe this is going to be a great opportunity, even though if I quit, I will have no job, and all the work I did. I mean, there was a lot of, of course, I was thinking about this, but at the end of the day, somehow the pulling factor, I felt like, but you know what? I joined the UN for two reasons. One is that of course, I want to make positive changes in the world. And I feel like, my lifelong mission is always going to be gender issues. As you
Yeah.
know, Japan is pretty bad with genders,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So these two have been always my mission. And at that time, I was thinking, rather than maybe, and I wasn't spending much time with my kids. I wasn't able to spend much time with my kids at that time. And, the family was living all over the place. So I was like, God, you know what? Maybe this is going to be a completely different. I mean, it was kind of scary in a way because the
Yeah.
whole time you're in this world. I mean, you have a clear vision where you're going. You know what's happening. You can expect what will happen. It's all kind of clear and secure. So to leave that was kind of difficult. Absolutely, to answer your question. But somehow, deep down, I knew that it would work eventually because I knew that there are many other things that I would be interested in life, and I could probably still achieve the same goal that I wanted to achieve through different ways. I didn't know through which way at that time, but I just knew it would.
It's beautiful. So, and I think that this connected with first you have the security, but then you follow your intuition, and then you are in between the security that and you have like currently holding and it's physical, plus what you my intuition, but it's not an idea that is becoming visible, and then it became very visible with the time. And that's why I would like to ask you, what would you recommend to someone who wants to do a career change? How to start? What would be your tips to that person?
Tips. Well, actually, I'm not sure if I'm a good person to give tips yet, but but I would say, I mean, in my case, I was just following my instinct rather than logic, because if you think through logic, it was completely illogical to
Yeah.
do what I did. But I mean, I knew deep down that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to spend time at last with my kids, because I've took special leave without pay. I've taken maternity leave, but still, I felt like I still wanted to have much more quality time. But then, of course, when I did, I realized how difficult it was to spend time
Yeah.
with kids. But anyway, yeah. So tip-wise, yeah, I think you would know that deep down that it would work. And even if you cannot logically explain how, I think you would have a gut feeling. And if you do have that gut feeling, I think basically the only answer is to just follow it.
Yes.
Even though it could be scary, yes.
And
And lots of people will try to stop you.
yes, but then is when you have to have like
Which
a
was
lot
the
of
case.
trust.
My,
Yes, which is understandable because if you are
yeah,
part of the staff already from the UN, and there are like hundreds of people that want to have that kind of contract, but so it's understandable. On the other hand, is a proof that if you have the courage, if you have faith, and if you have a lot of trust, you can follow your heart.
yeah, absolutely.
And before we start with Sarika talking about Sarika Group, I know that between this transition, you were also changing countries because your husband is also an expat and he is working in different places. So how difficult was to build up a business still being on the road, changing different countries?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, to give my husband credit, he was the first one who followed me as a trailing spouse when I went to Nairobi.
Wow.
So yeah, to give him credit. So I felt like for sure I could return this return this. And anyway, so yeah, what? Sorry, I kind of lost the question.
The question is because we are in the expat world.
Oh, yeah. Okay, okay.
So
How
I know that it's very
okay.
difficult. I know in our environment there are dual careers, and a lot of people are trying, to find a way to follow the spouse at the same time, do a business or finding a job. So my question was how difficult or easy, or how do you think about finding a job or finding your heart, your career, your vocation, while also being on the road, changing different countries?
Yes, okay, I totally get it. Okay. Yeah, I know what you mean. I think this is a huge issue. For example, I've seen in Vietnam, for example. And as I said, in some way, I saw it when my husband came with me to Nairobi. He quit his job, and I know it was not easy for him. So I was already expecting that it's not going to be super easy, but I didn't realize how difficult.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it also depends on the countries, because some countries or most countries, if one person in the household has a visa, the spouse is not allowed to work. So there are legal issues like this, and I think that's a major has been a problem in the past. And if, for example, in the case of Vietnam, what I did was that I kind of treated that. Well, I was in Vietnam twice, once with UNESCO, but this time, as a kind of with a family. And at that time, I wasn't actually intending to build a business as such at that very moment, but in hindsight, that really kind of helped me practice a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like an example of face yoga, for example, because I actually, in my current company, I have two key lines of action with face yoga and Psyche. And I feel like, thanks to my experience in Vietnam, where I wasn't technically allowed to work. So whatever workshops I did, all the money I made, basically I transferred it to various NGOs and whatever. But so for me, it was, I mean, at that time, okay, because, legally you cannot establish a business unless you go through a certain way and etc. So yeah, I mean, at that time, I kind of treated it as a one, like a testing or practicing phase, and number two, anything basically I was able to give to whatever that's needed. So in a way, it was okay. I mean, I know that's not a business, because in a business you need to have profit and income, but it was a really good practice. So I don't know. I'm not sure about tips as such, but you can surely, practice for sure, whatever field that you are in, and treat that as kind of a practicing ground. And then whatever, if you're not allowed to legally work, and then all the whatever payment that you receive, you can surely give it to something good. Yeah. So I think if you treat it as that, as a practice, I think it will work. But now with all this digital things, I think you could be anywhere now, because with the pandemic, kind of whole work style has changed. And I think now this hopefully would be less of a problem for expat spouses, that they will be able to, whatever niche or industry they're in. I think not every single profession, but I think a lot of them, you can actually work remotely.
And what you say, Sarika, is very true, because me myself, also in each country, I have done something, and this little something has trained me for the next thing and for the next thing, and it adds to it. So it's actually a benefit.
Absolutely, totally agree.
A benefit. So I read that you have been to 60 countries, that you have been in 4 continents, living in 11 countries. So, and I was just thinking as a family how easy or how difficult it was to adapt to the changes.
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on the age of the kids. Because in the beginning, everything was always smooth and easy. I mean, if you're in kindergarten or early elementary school, it's all easy. But I think it's becoming increasingly harder as they grow up because now they have their own identity, own friends. It's not like you can next
Yeah.
day you go to a new preschool. So yeah, it's been harder, but hopefully this will be the last move that we do until they graduate.
Yeah.
So, I mean, actually, we intend that to be the last move. So that's what we've promised them. And then they can really,
Choose the
put,
place.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I don't know. It has not been easy for sure. I mean, increasingly difficult for sure. But yeah, we have so far managed.
And which tips would you give to families with your experience, so that the kids and the family adapts a little bit faster as a family when they are changing countries? Which suggestions will you say? With your experience, they say like, "Oof, in my years, I learned this, and this," or
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'm in a good position to give tips for this, but for example, I mean, two things I would say. I mean, of course, they will always, I think the first response is that they don't want to move. So I think we always have to acknowledge that, okay, I totally get that you don't want, I mean, to actually, yeah, listen to them. And then we can finally take action, like get them excited rather than just go straight to positive things or
yeah,
getting them excited. Because in the past, when my kids were smaller, I would always, I mean, I was always excited to move to new places. So I would be really excited and the kids would be excited. But in the last, let's say, two moves, the first response is, no way, we don't want to go. So, yes, I guess listening to them or acknowledging them that they're feeling that, oh, I see, okay, you don't want to go. Okay. And then do the more excitement part after acknowledging what they
yeah.
have to say. But I don't know. I don't have an answer to this. Maybe
No,
there.
no, it's the experience. No, you have like a lot of experience with the kids, no, and this is the word sharing, and this is very important. Actually, I had it also in another interview as well for a friend who has a very intelligent, is emotional intelligent kid, and she said the most important is to acknowledge the feelings of the kid. So even in these cases, when there is change, that is very important as well, no, and then they have the experience, and they have also have the experience of changing the countries.
Yeah, and hopefully it will be a positive thing for them in the future as well.
Yeah,
Even
I
though, of
agree.
course, sometimes it will be hard when you're in the middle of it, the transition,
Yeah.
because you have to make friends all over again. And well, that's also the same for adults too. But
But for kids it's a little bit easier, I think. They adapt faster than for adults in some occasions, in the positive occasions.
could be. Could be. Sometimes you're a bit frozen, Giovanna, but okay, I can see you. Now you're moving again.
Okay, now I'm moving again.
Am I frozen?
No, I see you perfectly.
Oh, okay.
All good. So, my last question related to culture and changing and expat life is: your husband is Irish and you're Japanese. Any tips for bicultural couples?
Again, I'm not sure if I'm in a position to advise, but I think our rather than the cultural differences, I think the similarities in our values is what brings us. I mean, no, it's hard to it's hard to, I never really thought about kind of us in a bicultural way because we just like very, similar things. Like we
True.
like Guinness beer and eating and drinking. And so I never really, kind of looked at this as a bicultural. Of course, I didn't know anything about Ireland until I got to Ireland, but it has never been a hurdle so far. So I don't know any tips. I guess just to look for similar values, I suppose,
Yeah.
because that would definitely be a stronger bond than a cultural differences. And I think Ireland and Japan is probably pretty different, but I don't really see much of a huge gap
Yeah.
because what we like is so close.
Yeah. And both are islands.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think now that you said like you both are from the background very international, and that makes, I think, life a little bit easy as well. So very open-minded and traveled, and yeah, which is
Yeah,
beautiful.
although of course, if you go one generation or two generations back to my grandparents, they were completely against marrying anybody who is outside Japan, from outside. They said, "What? Iceland?" I said, "No, no, Ireland.
Ireland.
Iceland? No. That's not good." Yeah, but it
Yeah,
all worked out well.
new generation. So
Yeah.
now, Sarika, this is the main topic for today, and it's Sarika Group, and it is about sake and face yoga. So, how this love for sake and face yoga started?
Actually, completely by accident. I never imagined in my life. Actually, when I was working in the UN, I would have never, someone told me you're going to start up a company to do with sake and face yoga. I would have laughed because this is all an accident in some way. But, they say that there's no such thing as a coincidence, but it's just by chance that I got to know sake and face yoga, and by chance. I mean, sake, I really actually hated sake until maybe 11 years ago. And I always thought it was a pretty horrible drink that, like, my grandfather was always drinking it, and the little I tasted was like, ooh, why would anyone drink this? So I, yeah.
I do because I love it.
No, it was not
Yeah.
a good one at that time. Oh, now the sake is beautiful and amazing, but like in the past, I think the technology and everything has been so refined now that it's the best time to drink sake now in 2021. I mean, that's even the title of a magazine that I just bought recently in Japan.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
But from the old times, the sake was pretty bad. So just by chance, when we were traveling in Fukushima in northeastern Japan, I just had some local sake, and I was just blown away that this is sake. What? This is completely different from what I knew from before, like the one my grandfather was drinking, and I was so shocked that sake is this delicious. So that was 11 years ago,
Yeah.
and slowly I kind of gradually started learning about sake, and I just loved it, and it's been a great way to kind of love Japan again. I mean, of course I always loved Japan, but I've been outside for so long, and it's been a fantastic way kind of to reconnect with Japan. And and where my grandfather is from is actually one of we have 47 prefectures in Japan, but this prefecture, our ancestral town, has I think the second most number of breweries in all of Japan. So it's full of breweries. And
Wow.
So it's been an interesting journey to discover these things in our own ancestral place.
And how come the idea, okay, 11 years ago, you tasted sake, it was different, it was beautiful, and then Sarika Group.
Yeah. No, it wasn't instant. It took like many. No, it wasn't like that. But yes. So that was 11 years ago when I discovered it was great. Of course, I wasn't. I just wanted to have more of the same kind. It wasn't like I was going to make a business or anything. I was just learning about it. And so once I started to learn about sake, I was visiting breweries and, kind of studying just, I was reading lots of sake books. And then I discovered there's an organization that does sommelier tests. So like those kind of things I gradually did 5 years ago. And the more you learn about sake, it's so interesting. Because it's related to everything in Japan, from Japanese, history to culture, like social etiquette, like ceremonies, everything. It touches on everything. So it's so interesting but even at that time, I wasn't intending to, teach sake or anything. It was just a hobby. And actually, I was doing my PhD at that time, still in my original topic on urban policy and gender issues. So it never crossed my mind that I would have a Sarika group. But it's just gradually. And when I got to Warsaw last year, and I thought, you know what? I think this is a perfect place to establish my business because my kids are going to graduate from here. So we want to stay here, and I really love this city, as you know, since you came from Warsaw.
I know very much.
Giovanna, thanks to Giovanna. And now I was so excited to come here.
In my introduction to the interview, I said that actually while I left Poland to come to Taiwan, you left Taiwan to actually go to live to Poland. And I remember when I arrived, I didn't know much about Taiwan, so back then I really loved the place. But I love Poland. It has a very fast. It changes very fast. It's a jewel that not many people in Europe know about it.
Absolutely. I think it's the most underrated European city. I mean, it's gorgeous. The food is amazing, even though people think Polish food is potatoes or something, but it's actually so much beautiful food, right?
Yes. When you were little, I was telling you the food, the drinks, the vodka is very good. Yes. The city is like very modern. You can find anything and everything in Warsaw.
Absolutely.
The people are very, very kind. So you need to get a little bit warm. And then you have really good friends as well.
True. So that's why when I came, I think I arrived in Warsaw, and then within 5 months, I thought, this is where I will establish my company. So.
And I have seen that you have done a lot of work, not only on the field, like with workshops and physical workshops in Warsaw, but also online. So I have seen, which is very interesting, and I would like to ask you, what is your experience in spreading the love for sake in different formats, especially now after COVID or during COVID? So let us know about the collaborations that you had. I think you were working with MIT University and doing some workshops also with other people. So please tell us more about it.
Yeah, thank you. Well, as soon as I established my Sarika group, the first workshop I did was face-to-face, because this was before the lockdown. Well, it was in between the lockdown, because I opened my company kind of during the pandemic with Google Translate and going to the office to explain with Google. Anyway, so the first one I did was actually the Polish Vodka Museum in person. So And that was before the lockdown. And I found it really quite interesting to have the other like beverage professionals. They're all vodka professionals. So yeah, that was the start. And there were, we had many great plans after that, but unfortunately lockdown happened. But just before the lockdown, we actually had Poland's first sake festival. So
Wow.
yeah, I was,
Yeah, and that is by Sarika Group.
well, other people were doing it. I did a
Yes.
master class there.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, so it was, so that's how I started with in person. I mean, I wasn't really thinking about digital or online at that time because it was just before lockdown. And then lockdown happened. So all of the plans that I had to be canceled,
I
unfortunately. I mean, I
know.
also actually did some for like the women's group here in Warsaw and etc. But once lockdown happened, then luckily, and some people started contacting me that maybe you can do a workshop for us online. And I was online because I thought for sake, I don't know how I could do it online with the tasting.
Yeah.
And but then they were saying, think about it. And yeah, at the end, we did it with the tasting, and it all at the end worked out. But I really was kind of a bit nervous because it's all the first time.
And this was for people located in Poland or outside of Poland?
No, actually, this was for the MIT's Japan program. So, so
Wow.
it was like logistically to get the sake to them. So through
Yeah.
a US online retailer to arrange through that way because I'm physically in the EU. So you can't.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a bit of. I mean, it was my first time and a lot of logistical organization to think about, but it worked out really well. And after that, so I've been luckily getting more requests, but also requests to have a online course itself. So
Yeah.
rather than having the workshop with the time difference and
Yes.
logistical things, someone asked me, why don't you develop a digital course, like an on-demand one where you can go through the materials? Yeah, so
Yeah.
I am working on that as well.
Wow.
So yeah, there's different new ideas after the lockdown.
Yes, and hopefully now in summertime the lockdown will be reduced, and hopefully with the vaccines and vaccinations and everything is gonna be. I hope so because I am moving to
Ojalá
Berlin.
que sí. Ojalá
Ojalá que
que
sí, because I am moving to Berlin this
yeah,
August.
that's right. I'm so
Just
happy you're coming close.
very close to Poland. So you will have me in Poland tasting sake for sure together. And yes, I really am very positive that the situation will improve, and also for you, and also for me, for my own intercultural communication business as well. So hopefully, and also what I have seen is that you have going back to sake. So you have been doing a project which is called Women in Sake, and I
Yeah.
think this is a fabulous, really very interesting topic. And could you please tell us more about Women in Sake? What is it about?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, first of all, just to give you a background, as I mentioned earlier, gender, issues in Japan is unfortunately pretty bad. Like if you look at global indexes, we're always kind of in the bottom ranking. Definitely, I think the worst in all of the so-called developed countries. I think the last one was 121 place out of, let's say, 153. Yeah, so that bad. So in general, but of course, things are changing. Although this year with the pandemic, it seems like there's like rumors saying that probably this ranking is going to be worse next time because yeah, in terms of suicide rates for women in Japan have gone up to even like 40% or something crazy like this because of the pandemic, etc. Anyway, just as a context, it's not really a fantastic, gender equal society to start with. But yeah, unfortunately. So, but if you take the sake industry itself, there's a lot of exciting things happening, like in terms of a lot of great new women are going into the sake brewery and business, etc. So that's a really exciting thing. But the current fact is that there's about 1,200 sake breweries all over Japan, and there's probably about 30 women master brewers. So each brewery would have one master brewer. So in terms of numbers, it's quite 30 out of 1,200 is quite low yet.
Yeah.
Originally, because there were even like up to even as early as recent as 40 years ago, there was kind of saying that women were banned from entering the sake brewery because of various reasons, like practical reasons and religious reasons, and women have periods that may interfere with the fermentation. Many different legitimate and maybe not legitimate reasons. But anyway, but that's changing, and that's the exciting thing that I wanted to, if possible, document. So the Women in Sake project is basically, I've been trying to highlight women who are working in the sake industry and in any role. But so far I've interviewed like master brewers, women master brewers, and women who are, regardless of if they're Japanese or not, working with their passion to promote sake. So yeah, and I just wanted to highlight their achievements because they're actually making a huge contribution to the sake industry, because without these kind of new ideas and thinking, I think, the sake, the market or industry itself has been going down, like really 1/3 of what it used to be. So I think this is a great kind of progress that there's new blood coming in and making changes. Yeah, so that's the Women in Sake project.
And because I have seen some of the videos, some of them are in Japanese, so my Japanese is not that good yet. Only to say itadakimasu to eat and to drink kampe. But I have seen also a few interviews are in English, and they are quite interesting.
You have subtitles.
The subtitles I saw today, yeah. And also there was another interview that a lady from London was talking about sake, and how actually in Japan, how the trend is going down, and also it's like more male dominated, yet in London, for example, was more female dominated.
Absolutely. I think overseas, the people who are loving and working with sake, a lot of them are women. Yeah, which is great.
Which is very interesting, and also, also supporting not only the culture, but local breweries, because I think she as well was trying to find some sake from breweries that are not really able to export. So
yes.
And you are doing also a very good job, because you are actually coming and showing the faces of women in Japan and to the outside, to open for the people to know more, not only about sake but also this culture. And so I saw some of the videos, and in a nutshell, what will be for you the most interesting findings from the interview? So if you can put it like, summing up, women are doing this is what we need to do, this is what has been done, and what would you like the main findings?
Yeah, well, First of all, surprisingly, it's upbeat. I mean, well, first of all, I think the experience are greatly different if you're actually a sake brewer or if you're, you know, outside of Japan and sharing the love of sake, because the resistance that you would encounter is going to be totally different. So but over all across, I think it's quite upbeat in a way that, of course, some of the women brewers shared with me that you can see or hear through their interview that, yeah, some people, never really believed that they were actually brewing it. They were saying like, oh, it's maybe for marketing reasons, or that you want to that it's
Oh,
brewed by a woman for marketing reasons. So I mean, I think resistance is more in Japan, whereas if you're outside, like myself, it's so much easier, I think, because you're outside of this context, and there's whereas if you're really in the sake brewery itself, there's much more resistance from, I think,
collect.
fellow industry people
Yeah.
as well. So yeah, the experience really varies where you are and what you're doing. But overall, even the last person, who is an amazing person in Niigata that I interviewed, she's not a brewer, but she's the company vice president of her brewery, and she basically said she hasn't really had so much gender barriers. So it seems like they greatly vary according to the context, so it's hard to say like it's like this in general, but they do vary. But most of the people who said there has been resistance is, of course, the brewers themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So very interesting.
Yeah, but it's great that I think there's going to be more, because Japan, the population is shrinking, and more people are going to have less kids, which means that the only kid might be a woman who will be inheriting the brewery. So I think
Yes.
this trend will definitely continue, and yeah, and I think it's a positive thing. And there's surely these women brewers are coming up with really fun new ways to brew our products and ideas. So it's all a great, I think, contribution to the sake industry. So it's all good. I mean, I
So we talk about sake until now, but we haven't talked about face yoga,
hope.
which is like really very very nice topic. And I took one workshop with you here in Taiwan in sake, one face yoga.
That's right. Thank you,
And I
Giovanna.
was, amazed by it. And I would like to ask you, how come do you arrive to face yoga, and then how do you add face yoga and sake to Sarika Group?
Such a good question. Well, again, this was by complete accident. I mean, face yoga was also a complete accident. I just by chance, I heard about it, and I thought it sounded like a joke, but I was just so curious. And the more I read about it, I thought, oh, face muscle exercise. I mean, it makes so much sense if we all know the importance of body muscle exercise. Why not exercise the face? So I just went to the teacher training, and it just all happened like that. Yeah. And yes, actually, this is this has been a big dilemma, how to bring these completely two different passions together, as you can imagine, because they're really different. And I actually we have a great women entrepreneurs group that we do weekly kind of meetings and accountability meetings and partnership. And it turns out I thought I was the only one struggling to choose between these two things, but it turns out so many people are multi-passionate. And first, because when I was registering my company, I thought maybe I should focus on one. So I thought, okay, I would focus on Sake. But somehow, I love face yoga equally. It's like I can't choose. It's like two of your kids. You can't choose
Yeah.
one or the other. So basically, for my company's mission and everything, I kept the two, and still with the same mission that to brighten people's faces and spirits through face yoga and sake, and thereby hopefully also supporting small scale breweries and women brewers. But anyway, so how do I bring these two together? My first experiment is just coming, which is the digital course, online course of face yoga for sake and wine lovers.
I know. That's why I want to go to that topic, which is, I think, and also you have one course already, face yoga for hangovers, so
Oh,
like
yes, yes,
free
that's
mini
a
course.
free.
So I am going to link in somewhere of the boxes later on and the homepage of Sarika, so Sarika Group. And for example, for the face yoga for hangovers, it is a free mini course. So how do people register to this course?
Oh, you just thank you, Jamal. You just go to my website and there's a link there that says free course. So you basically click that, yeah, and it
And
will take you there to the
and
registration,
register.
and it's free. That one is free.
And
'Cause it was
the soft launch of face yoga for sake and wine lovers, when is going to happen?
great question. April Fool's Day.
Oh,
It
a
sounds like
very
a
good
joke,
day.
but it's actually going to be real. And I will have the cart open for 10 days, April 1 to April 10th is my
Okay, so I'm going to
program.
link the homepage, and then anyone who is interested, feel free to register for any of the courses and find more information about face yoga, sake, the upcoming events. And to finish this interview, just because with the interview I only not only present one expertise of my interview, but also like the person itself. So I have segment called Silly Questions, just to get to know a little bit more about Sarika. So Sarika, just very fast, who is your inspiration?
My mama.
Oh, a movie that you love and why?
But the last movie I saw was The Lion King in the movie
Oh,
theater.
but that's
And it's
very nice.
yes, it's my first date with my husband. And I fell asleep.
Not sure if it was good movie. No, but I love The Lion King. It's a really, really nice movie for kids and for me, I think for everybody. Had good memory. A book that you like and why?
Oh, the books I've been reading are all sake textbooks recently. And why? Because I just love it. Because I read it. I mean, every time I open these textbooks, I learn something new. So yeah. I haven't read a proper book actually for ages. The last couple of years, it's all sake textbooks
Okay,
everywhere.
but it's nice. It's a passion. It's your love. So do you have a hidden talent? A talent that no one knows that you have?
Oh, I can make crazy faces.
This is the lion pose. I remember that. Yeah.
Yes. You're so
So
good, Giovanna. Great.
I learned to do crazy faces. Apart of sake, which type of alcohol do you love the most?
Oh, well, actually, I love any type of alcohol, but especially wine. Yes. And Polish vodka is something I'm beginning to love now, also.
Uh, when you are in Poland, do you get in love with the Polish?
Yes. And
Yeah.
the Bloody Mary, of course,
Yes.
with the
And
vodka.
wine, which type of wine? Do you have a particular wine that you like?
Well, depending on my mood, it can be prosecco when I feel like something refreshing. I mean, actually, really, I love everything.
So you're in the right continent right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, that's right. Wine is so reasonable here.
So your favorite country? You know.
This is also so difficult, like impossible. Well, I always try to think that the country I'm in is the favorite one at that moment. So, I mean, of course, there's so many great countries, but yeah, as of now, because I'm in Warsaw and I just want to fully appreciate this country. So, at the
Warsaw.
moment, it is Warsaw, Poland, Poland.
And my last question is any idea or suggestion that you can share with people that can be of inspiration? For example, don't waste time, be in the present. Any motto that you have? What would you like to share with people?
You know, so far, I've just always been going with my inspiration. So I think your gut instinct knows you best. So I think following that, you don't need to be scared. Yeah, well, let's see. But yes, I would say, yeah, follow your instinct. I think that's for sure. That's how I've been making up all of my life decisions.
That's beautiful. So let's follow our intuition. Thank you, Sarika, for your time. It was a very wonderful interview. Thank you very much for sharing all your knowledge. And I hope to see you in person this year or maybe next year, really next
Oh,
year.
Giovanna, really, thank you. Muchísimas gracias. It's really, really, I'm so glad to see you and talk to you. And
I,
very excited you're coming to Berlin this way, this side.
arigato
And
gozaimasu.
thank you. Oh, arigato. Thank you for having me, really. I'm
Thank
so
you.
touched.